Welcome to Tales of First Ladies. I'm Eleanor Burns. Well, this is the first program in a 13-part series where you will learn how to make this historical quilt. The setting is taken from an antique quilt made in the 1800s. I used reproduction fabrics in rich reds, browns, and blues. Now, all of the blocks are traditional, starting with Lady of the White House with strip piecing, Martha Washington's wreath featuring applique, Double T for Lucy Hayes, Harrison Rose with paperback fusible web, Mrs. Cleveland's Choice with piece squares, down to Dolly Madison's Star with quarter squares. Now, all of the blocks are 12 inches square, and we'll make 2 identical blocks at a time and then just place them on opposite sides of the quilt. Now, this makes the quilt appear balanced, and that's good. Well, the center features 4 eagles and a medallion, referred to as the Union quilt since the 1880s. There are flying geese blocks on the bottom and top of the quilt for length. Mrs. Roosevelt's favorite is in the corner, and then the Lincoln block is in the top corner. You know, these blocks are fun to sew, but I bet you'll chuckle over little-known facts about our First Ladies. Well, our first block is called Lady of the White House, named by Mabel Obenchain in the 1940s. And the pattern was also simply called White House by Nancy Cabot in 1937. You know, at that time, Eleanor Roosevelt was in the White House with her husband, Franklin D. Roosevelt. You know, the White House represents not only the home of our presidents, but their families, and it's a symbol of the United States. The first cornerstone was laid in 1792 and was completed in 1800. You know, and this is an interesting tale. Did you know that free and enslaved African Americans helped build the White House? Right in front of where presidents take their oath of office used to be a tent city for slaves. Scottish immigrants also helped construct it, all for $232,371.83. Can you imagine? Well, I'm ready to construct the first quilt blocks. Join me. If you like the 12-inch blocks, you are going to love the 6-inch blocks. When I show this quilt, all of my students go, "Aw," something about those little 6-inch blocks. Now, they are the same ones, but you can see they're surrounding only a single eagle. Oh my gosh, we couldn't get 4 eagles in that little square. But he is really patriotic looking with a spray of flowers hanging over his head and some stars. Perfect. This particular quilt, for a wall hanging size, is surrounded by geese on all 4 sides. And Amy Potter did the quilting. It's just a charming wall hanging. I love it. Well, when I get ready for a new project as First Ladies, I always sit down to the internet and I do a little Googling. So I Googled First Ladies, and guess who came up first? It was me. I was so shocked. You know, Alex Anderson referred to me as the First Lady of Quilting, and it stuck. So Joan made me this beautiful silhouette. It's timely for the First Ladies, and this is definitely my profile. You can see my nose right here, my chin sticking out. There's the glasses. I don't know where the hair came from. But she put smaller eagles in all 4 corners and spray of flowers around, finished with a stripe in the border. And I absolutely love her little rounded corners. She said she has a bit of trouble with binding in those corners. Well, we need fabric. You've got to have lots of fabric, lots of color. And I always like to start with this one, my focus fabric. I like to pick a large-scale, multicolor print, one that I can use in the blocks as well as in the outside border. And this one is my favorite, red. I'll take red any day. Well, to go with this focus fabric, you can select one background that you will use in all of your blocks, or you could buy fat quarters of 7 different fabrics. They're different scales. This one reads solid. It's got cute little roses in it. The blues and the reds will match any of these fabrics. Texture, beautiful. Next, pick 4 color families. Go with the red. Start with red. And now, again, you can pick 4 fat quarters. Just remember your textures and your scales is a little stripe, 2 little stripes. A lot of texture here. These reds are perfect in the flowers in the wreath. You could use it as the eagle head, as his talons. You put it on the medallion, or use it in any part of the block just to add that special oomph. Get it going. Okay, the second color family, I selected blue. Now, again, there's variation in the scales, and look at this one. I think this blue would make a great shield for the eagle. These 2 actually read solid from a distance, so they can go in with any of the pieces that have a large scale, a lot going on. These will tone down those blocks. Again, we've got some greens, the third color family, and we only need to have 3 greens. You can use this for the stems and leaves. I think this would make a great leaf. You could use it as an olive branch for the eagle, or put it in any part of any of the blocks. Last is brown. This piece, I think this would make fantastic feathers for the eagle. We need to have a little bit of a stripe for the Dolly Madison star. You could use it for the center of the eagle, anywhere. Beautiful. Now, once we have all of these picked out, we need to have 1 accent fabric. Perfect for the stars. Add a little bit of boost to the center of your flowers. Wonderful. And then we need to have our setting fabrics. This is for the triangles around the eagle. And then on the outside of the blocks, I'm going to make triangles in blue. These are the geese in dark and light. And then we're going to finish up with the focus fabric for the border. Perfect. I love my scrappy Lady of the White House quilt. I selected a variety of scraps for 9 blocks from 1860 fabrics in colors of red, green, blue. There's a touch of black, but I especially like the yellow. It just adds that little zing to it. And I used 10 different light backgrounds. That's a lot. Added a background framing border and a border. Then I quilted it with a grid going on the diagonal, a little crosshatch quilting. And in the border, there's some great cables running along there. So fun. Just love it. Well, this is 1 block of Lady of the White House. There are 3 different units. First of all, you have the 9 patch. You have 4 of them per block. You have a little windmill right in the center with the pieced squares. And then the best part, you have just solid squares in the corners. And you have a total of 8 of those per block. Well, I'm going to start with the 9 patch. This is what a 9 patch looks like. One of my favorite pieces to do, actually. And it's done from strips. I'm the stripper, so I'm really good at this. I have 6 light and 6 dark. So just flip the dark onto the light. These are 1.5 inch by 7 inch strips. These are for the 12-inch blocks. And just line them up right sides together. I have my 1/4 inch foot on from the hole right here to this bar. It is 1/4 of an inch. But I decided I would sew with a scant 1/4 inch. Instead of sewing at 3.5, I'm sewing at 4.0 right now. So all of my patches end up being the perfect size. Now, that's pretty good, huh? So just line up your raw edges. Keep the raw edges against the bar. Assembly line sew. I already have most of them done. I'm on a roll. I'm just rocking and a rolling. Well, I put the dark on the top because in just a second, I'm going to press towards the dark. So I get everything set up so that you can do it efficiently. So just take your whole strip. Whoops, broke apart. Oh my goodness, that won't matter. I was going to cut them anyways. So just place them straight on your grid and set the seam. And setting the seam means just press along there so that the stitches sink into your fabric. Open and then just press toward the dark. How about a little steam? I feel like they're a little dry there. We'll get that going. So that's why I always put the dark on the top. It's ready for pressing. If you get it all set up, you can get everything done in a day. And isn't that too much fun? They're beautiful fabrics. I absolutely love them. Okay, now, once they're all pressed towards the dark, just go back, turn that off, and clip them apart and divide them into 2 sets. I want you to take the first set and put 2 in it, and then in the next set, put 4 in it. And this is what I'm doing. I'm getting ready for the next row of pieces. So right here, this is going to be the middle set. So we need to do dark, light, and then add a dark to it. And then this one, I have twice as many. I'm doing light, dark, light. So just get those set up with the light pieces. And once again, do some assembly line sewing. You know, although President Washington actually oversaw the construction of the White House, it was the second president, John Adams, and his wife, Abigail, who were the first to move in. So it was just really fun for Adams. And you know that it did survive that fire of 1812. There was a little bit of destruction in the White House, and they had to do some rebuilding. But some of the funny things about it, do you know that whenever the president and his wife moved into the White House originally, they had to cook on a fireplace. Can you imagine cooking on a fireplace? And it wasn't until the 1850s that a stove was added. Boy, and now they have this staff of 5 full-time chefs. They can serve 140 at dinner and 100 people for hors d'oeuvres. I'm just going to go this far so I can show you the whole step. Okay, once again, I'm going to set it with the dark on the top, open, and press. This is our middle section right here. Turn this one over so the dark is on the top, open, and press toward the dark. I do not know how this happened, but I have 3 pieces identical. Well, we'll just pretend it's scrappy, huh? And we'll just set these aside and pick them up in a minute because I want to show you how we can cut these apart. And I like to use this ruler that has the slots in it. Right along here, it's got little slots. So take your pieces and stack them up, line up the edges, and then move your ruler onto it. Line up 0 across the bottom and allow a bit on the left so that you can actually square it off. There's a keyhole right here. It has 0. I'm just going to put my cutter in and cut at 0. They're 1.5-inch strips. We want to make squares, so cut at 1.5 inches. And get going fast. Do 3, and then do 4.5 and 6. I'm just showing off. So now take off the ends like this. Get rid of these. And then all you need to do is put this one right in the middle. And these 2 go on each side. And that's the 9 patch. Not very scrappy, but it's a 9 patch. And then once you sew those pieces all together, then just press your seams away from the edge, away from the center. Perfect. So to make the 2 blocks, you need to have 8, 9 patch. Well, you get busy on those, and I'm going to get my triangle piece squares ready. I measured my 9 patch, and it came out perfect. It's 3.5 inches with that scant 1/4 inch seam. And since this is the first block, this is really good for you too as well. So go ahead, test that 1/4 inch seam, and then measure your finished block. Make sure it's what I'm telling you it should be. 3.5 inches for the 12-inch block, and the 6-inch block is only this little tiny 2-inch 9 patch. It's incredible. But just check, this is a square up ruler, perfect size, so that all of these have to be 3.5 inches. The solid square is cut at 3.5 inches as well. So now we've got to make the piece square 3.5 inches as well. They start out as 4-inch squares. You have 4-inch background and 4-inch medium and dark. And out of each of these, you can get 2, a set for each one of your blocks. So put your background out, put your dark centered right on top, right sides together to it. I like to draw a diagonal line with my square up ruler because I put a 45-degree line along the left edge. That way I know I've got it pretty well on point, on the diagonal. But the best thing is that these are a little oversized and you can square them up and make them perfect in the end. So now I want to sew a 1/4-inch seam on both sides of this diagonal line. So you can go back to a regular 1/4-inch or keep your scant. Doesn't really matter. I put the bar on my foot right on the line, and so that whenever I stitch, my stitching is actually 1/4 inch away. And if you're assembly line sewing, you're just going to keep them all running right through behind one another. So just turn it around now and sew a second time with the bar on the line, needle down, check it out. Little math here. If you do 1/4 inch and 1/4 inch, boy, we're hoping it's a 1/2 inch in between. So take your ruler again and measure it. Check from one edge to the other. It is a 1/2 inch. That's really good. So now just go ahead, cut it on one diagonal. So see, we're getting 2 out of there. Now we're going to square it up before we press it. And I'm using this ruler called the triangle square up rulers. You see I have all squares here, but now I'm making this triangle patch so the lines are all going across. They have 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, etc. on one side, and on the other they're whole numbers. I want 3.5. So just focus on that line. Now, if you were going to do 100, boy, you'd want to have it done perfect every time, right? So I like to use glow line tape. And you just line up glow line tape underneath that line. Okay, good. Just put it down there. The good thing about glow line tape is that you can easily remove it and change the placement of your line. All right, so now from the right side, you can see it says 3.5 inches. I'm going to take my triangle and line up the glow line and the 3.5 inch line right underneath my stitching. Under my stitching. Oh, it's tricky to remember the stitching. And I centered it so that I have a little bit excess to trim on both sides. Now you could go ahead and put it against one side and only trim one side and make it perfect. There we go. Okay, so that's all the extra, the leeway that you have. So this, just get rid of it. Now it's just like the strips. I set the seam with the dark on top, little seam, open, and press toward the dark. Perfect. Okay, now trim your tips. You've got these tips hanging out on the edges. And just take your cutter and cut those off. You get to cut off your tips. Now it's perfect square. And let's just check. Let's see if this is 3.5 inches too. That would be great. Let me turn it the same as the diagonal line. Ooh, looking good. 3.5 inches. It's gonna go together. Now, we have 4 triangle piece squares, we have 4 9 patch, and we have 8 solid squares. So let's just start in the center and lay out the little windmill. I'm dyslexic, so I'm just going to look at the picture. I think that's going to be a lot easier. And make these guys spin. Ooh, they're opposite there. I've got one more here. How about let's replace this one? right? Kind of stand back, squint, looking good. Okay, now off of each one of these pieced triangles, you put a 9 patch. What's your fabrics? Don't put the same fabrics together. For instance, that and that. Let's just turn it around, and that'll be different. Okay, down here, a 9 patch, and over there. Let's just turn it so that the red is far away. That's easy. Okay, now we need to have lights beside each one of our 9 patch. Go right around there. And the dark corners are last. Now, since that red, that stripe really just pops out there, I want to make sure that I don't put it here, but how about over here? And so just look and see something that looks good. You can always tell a quilter because she lays it out, she steps back, she squints at it and says, yes, it's good. And sometimes you sew the whole quilt together and then realize you didn't turn something right. Now what I'm going to do is just sew vertical rows. I'm going to flip my middle row onto my left row, and I'm just going to sew right down along there. And then I'm going to open my patch, and I'm going to sew this next vertical row, and then the last vertical row. I'm going to sew all of these vertical rows, and then I'm going to show you the coolest technique so that your center lays perfectly flat. I've sewn all of my vertical rows from top to bottom, and now I just have to go across the opposite way to finish the block. And I already started over here on one side, and it's critical how you press your seams so you get that flat center in the windmill. On the top side, I press all of my seams down, but on the opposite side, I pushed all of the seams up. They actually lock together that way. And now I'm just going to flip this over. I have this row to do, and so I'm going to press my seams following what it is in the opposite side. Here they went up, so on this side they're going to go up, and this side they go down. So you just keep on alternating, but it's important how you alternate. Oh my gosh, this quilting is something else. Okay, so let me get it all lined up, and just use that 1/4 inch seam, needle down, step on the gas, and right here I'm at this seam, so I'm pushing it up because it's up over here, it's down underneath. Okay, you want to lock it together. Your stiletto is just a great tool to use when you're going across there to hold those seams flat. I'm at the center. Oh my gosh, I got all those seams, all that bulk. But you just wait and see what we do. And one more seam here. Get it all lined up, lock it together, hold it down flat. You know, today in the White House, there are 132 rooms. There are 6 levels and 35 bathrooms. How would you like to clean that many bathrooms? Oh my gosh, I'm lucky if I get one cleaned. And so let me just look on the other side. Ooh, that's looking good, huh? So feel it. Very bulky. Very, very thick right there. So this is my trick. I'm going to show you. Right here, I want to take my seam ripper and cut this very center thread. Just cut it through, and then I want to go right up in the seam allowance and remove those 3 stitches right there, and then turn it around on the other side and remove those same 3 stitches. So then I just lay it wrong side up, and I'm going to swirl around the middle. I'm going to press this to the left, down, around, and up. Let me just do a little work if I can get in here with my fingers, because I want to lay it open, and I am going to have this great little 4 patch. It's coming, and I think I just have to take it, mush it good. A little push with the iron is going to make it even better. And so now swirl it down, around, and up, right in a circle, right around the center. Ooh, it's very flat on the back now. And you can see a great match on the front side. It's getting good. So all I have to do is finish this seam and this block will be done. Beautiful. So you go get your 2 blocks done and then you can hang those scrappy ladies in your White House.